For 3 years, a young attorney had been spending his brief vacations at a small country inn. The last time he was there, he finally managed to begin an affair with the innkeeper's beautiful daughter. Looking forward to an exciting few days, he dragged his suitcase up the stairs of the inn, then stopped short. There sat his lover with an infant on her lap. "Becky, why didn't you write when you learned you were pregnant?" he cried. "I would have rushed up here, we could have gotten married, and the baby would have had my name."
"Well,"
she said,
"when my folks found out about my condition, we sat up all night talking about what we should do. Pa said it would be shameful to have a bastard in the family, but that would surely be better than, well, you know, a lawyer."
3 passengers are on board a small twin-engine plane when it develops engine problems. The pilot realizes that the plane will not be able to continue its flight over the mountains. With no place to land, he decides to put it on autopilot and talk to the passengers. Arriving in the passenger compartment, he announces that the plane is going to crash. He tells the passengers that there are only 3 parachutes on board and that he is going to take one of them. With that said, he grabs one of the chutes and bails out of the ailing plane. The 3 remaining passengers look at each other and almost immediately one begins to speak.
"I'm a CEO of 3 major companies. Many important projects worldwide are depending on me to manage them. I'm probably the smartest man on Earth, and therefore I deserve one of the parachutes."
He then picks up a parachute and leaps out of the airplane. The 2 remaining passengers, a priest and a Boy Scout, just look at each other. Then the priest begins to speak.
"I am old and have lived most of my life. I'm confident of my future and not afraid to die. Please take the remaining chute and jump from the plane before it crashes."
The Boy Scout just smiles and says,
"Don't worry, we're both gonna be okay. Remember that last guy, the smartest man in the world? He just jumped out of the plane holding my backpack!"
A man was walking along a California beach and stumbled upon an old lamp. He picked it up, then rubbed it, and out popped a genie. The genie said,
Okay, you released me from the lamp, blah, blah, blah. This is the 4th time this month, and I'm getting a little sick of these wishes, so you can forget about 3. You only get 1 wish."
The man sat and thought about it for a while. Then he said,
"I've always wanted to go to Hawaii, but I'm scared to fly, and I get very seasick. Could you build me a bridge to Hawaii so I can drive over there to visit?"
The genie laughed and said,
That's impossible. Think of the logistics of that. How would the supports ever reach the bottom of the Pacific? Think of how much concrete and steel. No, think of another wish.
The man agreed and tried to think of a really good wish. Finally, he said,
"I've been married and divorced 4 times. My wives always said that I don't care and that I'm insensitive. So, I wish that I could understand women and know how they feel inside and what they're thinking when they give me the silent treatment. Know why they're crying. Know what they really want when they say nothing. Know how to make them truly happy."
The genie then replied,
You want that bridge with 2 lanes or 4?
An old man applies for a job as a lumberjack, but the boss doesn't think he's fit enough.
Are you sure you can handle this job?
Asks the boss.
"Sure I can,"
replies the old man.
"I can cut down any tree with just 1 swing."
Doubtful, the boss says,
Oh, really?
"Well,"
says the old man,
"come outside and I'll show you."
So they go outside and the old man hits a 5-foot tree with his axe and it falls over. The boss is impressed. The old man then repeats this with a 10-foot tree. Next, he knocks down a 30-foot tree. Finally, he takes his axe up to an 80-foot redwood, swings, and the giant tree crashes to the ground. The boss is amazed and asks,
How did you learn to do that?
The man says,
Oh, I practiced in the Sahara forest.
Don't you mean the Sahara Desert?
asks the boss.
Well,
Replies the old man.
that's what they call it now.
Patty and Murphy are sitting at a bar sipping their beers. Murphy turns to Patty and says, So I guess you made it home okay last night? I mean, you were pretty drunk when you left the bar.
Oh, yeah,
Says Patty.
I decided to leave my car here and take a bus home instead.
Where did you find a bus around here? Asks Murphy.
Actually, I was so drunk that I can't remember.
Replies Patty.
But it's a good thing I did because I passed a police checkpoint on the way home and they were pulling over cars left and right and performing breathalyzer tests.
Well, I'm glad you made it home safely, says Murphy.
Yeah,
Agrees Patty.
it was a real surprise to me.
Confused, Murphy asks, Why are you surprised that you made it home safely if you took the bus? Patty replies,
Well, you see, I've never driven a bus before.
A man walks into a quiet bar and orders a cold beer. He takes the beer over to a table and sits down. After a few sips of his beer, he hears a small voice say,
Nice shoes.
He looks around, but he is the only one in the bar except the bartender, who is occupied cleaning the other end of the bar. The man shrugs it off and goes back to his drink. A few minutes later, another small voice says,
Nice shirt.
Again, the man looks around but can see nobody. Concerned that his mind is playing tricks on him, he is now on guard, listening for any reoccurrences. After a few minutes, a third small voice says,
Nice pants.
This time he is sure it is not his imagination, so he goes up to the bartender and tells him what has happened. Oh yeah, that happens all the time, says the bartender, pointing to the small bowl on the guy's table. It's the peanuts. They're complimentary. Several centuries ago, the Pope decreed that all the Jews had to convert to Catholicism or leave Italy. There was a huge outcry from the Jewish community, so the Pope offered a deal. He'd have a religious debate with the leader of the Jewish community. If the Jews won, they could stay in Italy. If the Pope won, they'd have to convert or leave. The Jewish people met, and they picked an aged and wise rabbi to represent them in the debate. However, as the rabbi spoke no Italian, and the Pope spoke no Hebrew, they agreed that it would be a silent debate. On the chosen day, the Pope and the rabbi sat opposite each other. The Pope raised his hand and showed 3 fingers. The rabbi looked back and raised 1 finger. Next, the Pope waved his finger around his head. The rabbi pointed to the ground where he sat. The Pope brought out a communion wafer and a chalice of wine. The rabbi pulled out an apple. With that, the Pope stood up and declared himself beaten and said that the rabbi was too clever. The Jews could stay in Italy. Later, the cardinals met with the Pope and asked him what had happened. The Pope said,
First I held up 3 fingers to represent the Trinity. He responded by holding up a single finger to remind me there is still only one God common to both our beliefs. Then I waved my finger around my head to show him that God was all around us. He responded by pointing to the ground to show that God was also right here with us. Finally, I pulled out the wine and wafer to show that God absolves us of all our sins. He pulled out an apple to remind me of the original sin. He bested me at every move, and I could not continue.
Meanwhile, the Jewish community gathered to ask the rabbi how he had won.
I don't have a clue,
The rabbi said.
First, he told me that we had 3 days to get out of Italy, so I gave him the finger. Then he tells me that the whole country would be cleared of Jews, so I told him that we were staying right here.
And then what?
asked a woman. Who knows? Shrugged the rabbi. He took out his lunch, so I took out mine. A doctor and a lawyer were talking at a barbecue. Their conversation was constantly interrupted by people describing their ailments and asking the doctor for free medical advice. After about an hour of this, the exasperated doctor turned to the lawyer and asked, "What do you do to stop people from asking you for legal advice when you're out of the office?"
I give it to them,
replied the lawyer.
and then I send them a bill.
The doctor chuckled at this and decided to give it a try himself. The next day, the doctor prepared a stack of bills. When he finished, he went to place them in his mailbox, where he found a bill from the lawyer. On Black Friday, a wife drags her husband out to the mall to attend all the sales. Midway through the mall, the wife notices that her husband is missing. Annoyed, she calls him on his cell phone. The wife says,
Where are you? You know we have lots of sales to get to.
He replies, "Do you remember the jewelers we went into about 10 years ago and you fell in love with that diamond necklace? Remember how I couldn't afford it at the time and I said that one day I would get it for you?" Little tears start to flow down his wife's cheek as she gets all choked up.
Yes, I do remember that shop,
she replies. The husband adds, "Well, I'm just getting ready to order a few beers at the bar next to it." On a plane bound for New York, the flight attendant approached a blonde sitting in the first-class section.
Ma'am, please move to the coach section as you do not have a first-class ticket.
The blonde replied,
I'm blonde, I'm beautiful, I'm going to New York, and I'm not moving.
Not wanting to argue with a customer, the flight attendant asked the co-pilot to speak with her. He went to talk with the woman, asking her to please move out of the first-class section. Again, the blonde replied,
I'm blonde, I'm beautiful, I'm going to New York, and I am not moving.
The co-pilot returned to the cockpit and asked the captain what he should do. The captain said, "I'm married to a blonde, and I know how to handle this." He went to the first-class section and whispered in the blonde's ear. She immediately jumped up and ran to the coach section, mumbling to herself,
Why didn't anyone just say so?
Surprised, the flight attendant and the co-pilot asked what he had said to her that finally convinced her to move from her seat. The pilot replied, "Oh, I just told her." The first-class section wasn't going to New York.